Karen, I love the ball you have brought with you this time.
Thank you. Do you want to play with my ball?
I would like to. I'd leave a little streak mark on it. It's heavier than I thought.
Yes. I don't mess around. When it comes to balls, like size, mass, weight, I do not mess around.
Facts. So I just got back from an Abraham Hicks cruise. And at the end of it, I did a QHHT session with someone for the first time.
Which means?
Something that I don't know. It's Dolores Cannon's method for something, for tapping into the higher self. Maybe basically I wound up channeling my own inner being or higher self. And it was exhilarating. But the first idea, if I can throw one out that I'm excited to get into, because I played a little experimentation with this on the cruise. The first day of the cruise, Abraham spoke, and one of her core messages, which she's been saying a million times, but I heard it very clearly this time, was placing your intention and focus first on alignment before taking any physical action. So basically, the experiment I played was constantly checking in with myself to see where I was emotionally at. If I wasn't feeling exhilaration, I would sit down for anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour and really focus on cultivating the feelings. And I did no planning whatsoever. If someone messaged me and they're like, hey, let's do something right now, I would go. But otherwise, if people were like, hey, how about we do dinner later? I'm like, let's see if it winds up. Like, do you want to go ashore tomorrow? I was like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. And it turned into this string of amazing unfolding where basically I think I had a better time than I would have if I planned, and I did no planning whatsoever.
Oh my gosh.
And even instances where I saw like two old friends on the boat and they're like, hey, we're going ashore in a couple minutes. You want to come with us? We'll meet you right out front. And I was like, sure. So I go ashore. I'm waiting there for a few minutes. They don't come. I wait 15 minutes. They don't come. I go, no problem. This is a perfect example. Everything's benefiting me. I'm just going to walk into town. I start walking into town. 2 minutes later, some other lady who I met getting on the ship was like, hey, I'm about to hop in a taxi with these couple people to go somewhere. You want to come with? And I was like, hell yes. And it wound up being the most amazing day. And there's just one example. It was a string for 10 days straight of occurrences like that, where I did no planning at all, but I just kept bumping into people. And it was a grand experiment and a perfect time to do it because there was no responsibility to just take no action and see how being in a particular chosen state creates the reality experience.
That's so cool. It reminds me of, we've talked about following your highest desire.
Yes.
And allowing yourself the spaciousness to do that in the moment by not having obligations. We've also talked about that, like what it's like when you have these obligations. You gave someone your word, you would do something, and then something that was perhaps a higher preference or higher excitement popped up.
Yes.
So I love that. It's like you learned from it and you applied it and you were ready when she said it.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Doing the work. And the highest excitement is a cool idea too. There's so many amazing people on the cruise, or they're amazing in the sense that we're all playing the same game. I always go back to the core perspective I choose of reality. There's infinite sets of games people are playing. It's really cool for me to be surrounded by people who are playing the same game of consciousness expansion. So within that context, it was fun because a lot of other people were in that same mindset of responsibility. So people who were even trying to plan ahead would tell me, hey, I'm definitely going to be at dinner at 6. And then they're like, by the way, when I say definitely, I mean there's a 50% chance because I might encounter someone else on the way and like peel off. And everyone was completely accepting of each other, like saying they're going to be somewhere and then not showing up. And everyone had endless stories of how that benefited them, of someone who followed a higher excitement benefiting them. And then the people they didn't show up for had other things unfolding. And it's like literally Dr. Joe's unknown. When you like don't plan, you open potential for the unknown to find you. And I see it when I'm in that state of being. It calls forth unknown experiences that are just freaking delicious. Fucking delicious, because it's right fucking now.
That's right. Oh my gosh, that's so good. It's getting me like really juiced up to play with this because there are not that many have-tos that I really have in my life. I mean, I have children, I get to get them to school at a certain time and maybe even pick them up if they're lucky. But the rest of the time, following my highest desire, like in the moment. And allowing the unknown to surprise and delight me.
Yes.
Not planning to be surprised and delighted, because how do you plan for that?
Yes. And it comes in an unexpected way. And Abraham mentions frequently, she probably mentioned again on this cruise, when you have an occurrence that's just delicious, frequently multiple elements are present together. And Neville Goddard talks about that when he uses his piano analogy. He's like, you'll wind up having experiences where you're hitting several delicious keys simultaneously, and you'll be like, oh my God, this experience is happening, and it has this and this and this all within it. And if I can share one other amazing story that came from it, I went with a friend randomly to a beach, and we just started walking, and maybe I can splice the video in if I get saucy enough here, but I wind up walking on a beach. We're just walking. The cutest little dog comes up and just starts walking with us for probably like 15 minutes, like a half a mile down this beach. The cutest little dog. I took out my camera, flipped it around, and was just walking, filming it. So I'll see if I can splice it in now while I'm talking about it. And
that's definitely one of your highest desire things is puppies.
Yes,
so
that's right. I love my puppies. And I had a moment where I'm like, oh my God, I'm walking on a beach with an amazing friend with this dog next to me on like the perfect day. Just so many elements were coming together. The air was perfect. It's just so cute to have a friend with me. And then we sit down, we decide, oh, we're gonna stop here for a little bit. The dog sits down next to us, and I'm kind of looking back and forth at the dog. It's so cute. Strangely enough, or not strange, interestingly enough, the dog had a collar and a tag, and it said registered stray dog. And I think this was in the island of St. Lucia. So what an interesting model for dealing with dogs. But anyway, then a couple minutes later, after the dog and I are staring at each other, another couple go walking by on the beach, and he just gets up and starts walking with them. And I was like, it's so amazing. And I like chose compersion, right? You could choose sadness, like, oh, this cute dog's leaving me. But I chose to be like, this is this dog's thing. It's like gonna go on to make another couple happy. And I started milking the emotions of the couple looking down and realizing they had a little dog walking with them. So just several of those like harmonic keys all hitting together.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's juicy.
Yeah.
I love it. And you probably wouldn't have predicted that, right? Like you couldn't have.
Not in a million
like
years.
on a beach.
Yes. So delicious.
So good.
Yeah.
So what else?
I met someone on the cruise who was a Dolores Cannon QHHT level 2 practitioner. She was kind of explaining, I guess there's 3 levels of practitioner certification, and the more sessions you do, the more you can advance to like a higher level. And it was so unique and delicious and exciting. I don't know how it goes for most people, but for me, I basically channeled my own inner being or higher self or whatever you call it. And I was in a state where she would ask questions or converse, and like one perspective of myself was like, I have no idea how I'm gonna answer this question. And then words just started flowing out of my mouth that were the most like amazing resonant explanation and statements about things that I could never consciously try and come up with. And it was just such a cool experience. I was referring to myself as John, almost like I was looking at myself, and then I could switch back and forth into my like John perspective. And while this was going on, I had just the most delicious feeling in my body. I had emotions of bliss and happiness and excitement, and I had sensations that I never really experienced before, kind of like a tingling. And it started in my hands and worked its way in my whole arms, then my whole chest. And towards the end of the session, it like connected in the center, and my whole body was just lit up with some really unique energy that felt blissful. And the practitioner asked, like, I see John's body moving around, like, what's going on? And my higher self was like, upgrades.
Wow.
And it felt every bit of it. The answers were profound. I've been listening to the recording almost every day since, and it's just very specific key things that apply to me, I guess, most. And I love the idea of everyone channeling their own inner being. And Abraham and Bashar and a lot of these people who do the channeling idea are always saying you have access to us or yourself or anyone you want to because we're all one consciousness.
Yes.
And it was just such a cool idea and such a cool experience, and I'm so appreciative of it.
That's amazing.
Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Not that, but I do a practice where for me, it's easiest to channel answers for myself when I'm writing. And I'm not like a big writer, but for me, it's like I'll journal, like do a mind dump, like just like get it all out on the page. And then I will ask my questions for whoever, my higher self, God, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then like once there's quiet, once there's a space, then that quiet voice can be heard. And then I just write. Usually I'll write in a different color. And the handwriting's even slightly, well, it's definitely neater than mine. But the words are not ways that I would speak. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not. It's just, and then when I read it again, it is so loving and so beautiful and just feels delicious. Yeah. But I think the times that I haven't been able to do that is when I've been afraid. If I have like any type of guilt or shame, like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, or I'm feeling bad, or I'm afraid I'm not going to connect, or I'm not worthy of connecting. So then what I do ahead of time is just a prayer. It's from the Way of Mastery. It's a little meditation, and it's like just 5 minutes. And it's as you breathe in, it's I accept. As you breathe out, it's the love of God, or the love of Source, the love of Buddha, whatever you want. So once that gets into my body, that, oh, I'm lovable no matter what. Like if God loves me, Source loves me, then who the fuck cares about anybody else?
Yes.
So then it creates that, again, it reminds me of my worthiness. So it creates that spaciousness and that room for God to come in and speak through me.
That's beautiful. And I really like your mentioning or focusing on the emotional state being the key to getting there, to being able to do that. My inner being or higher self was focusing a lot on that same idea that life is really just an emotional experience. Without the emotion, it would just be flat. Like nothing, according to Bashar, and I believe it as a truth, the gift of life is that it's meaningless. No person or circumstance or thing actually has built-in meaning. You get to give it meaning, and then based on the meaning or definition you give it is the experience it will reflect back to you ultimately, frequently in time. But the emotional quality is what lets you know what definition or intention you're placing on something and what reflection you're going to get back. And I was really sitting with that and realizing, like, shit, without emotions, everything is literally just completely neutral. There would be no like impetus or friction or motivation to like do anything if everything was neutral and had no emotion to it. How would you know to go towards or go away if you weren't feeling like yummy or yucky inside? Like that's broad, like totally blew my mind.
Well, it's true too. And the meanings we give things can create bliss or they can create suffering.
Yes.
And look at like A Course in Miracles, it will say all events are neutral. And it's the meaning that we give them that creates our experience and our either enjoyment or suffering.
Yes. I have one more story that's coming to mind, if I may. So I wound up bumping my flight because I met someone who did the QHHT session, and we didn't want to be rushed on the boat because it can take up to 4 hours. So I'm like, all right, the day we get into port, we'll do it so I can like take my time. So I bumped the flight. Long story short, I get to the airport when I'm actually about to fly out, and like tons of flights were canceled, including mine. And I go, no problem. Somehow this is benefiting me. And I hold the vibrational state. People around me are freaking out. And I'm like, this is my point of power right now. Like we can discuss the concepts like we're doing all day. But when that moment fucking comes and you're in the airport, everyone's freaking out. There's like a million people yelling every different direction. I'm like, this is my point of power and this is benefiting me. The lady's like, oh, you're gonna miss your connection and this and that. She's like, maybe we can put you on standby. You have like a low probability. I'm like, no problem. I'll take that 1 in a million chance. That's good enough. Long story short, I like get on standby on an earlier flight. I have this like bulkhead seat with a bathroom, so I have super leg room. The next flight, there is Miraculously 9 open first class seats. And I guess because I fly a lot, I have like a status where I got bumped up. I was 3rd on the list. So I'm always looking for bump ups. I've never seen 9 first class seats available on one flight before. I got bumped up. But the cherry on it was, so not only did I get back in time for my puppy event on Saturday and in perfect health and perfect everything, but I got a $650 credit from the airline.
Wow.
So it's just,
Oh my gosh.
I basically arrived at the exact same time I would have if I was on my original flight.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just exhilarating to see it is a choice, and I'm really seeing it now by playing with it, and I'm exhilarated to play more with the idea of choosing the point of attraction and letting go. This morning in my meditation, I kept hearing, reality is my best buddy, and it was, the inner voice was like, sit there. Reality is your best friend. It's a mirror if you decide reality is your best friend. And it is. It's given me food. It's given me shelter. It's given me you, this computer, like friends, trips, so many amazing things.
I love like when you put it into practice, you're actually proving, you're giving yourself the experience of success.
Yes.
Because you're willing to hold that vibration.
Yes.
Whereas everybody is successful all the time,
Yes.
100% of the time at their dominant vibration. So if they're like, oh, this is terrible, they are right.
I love that.
They are right, and they are creating their experience from that place, and they get to be right.
Yeah.
And you know, we live in a kind universe. It will give you exactly what you ask for, and the
Yes.
vibration that you hold, right?
Bashar has the most eloquent statement on that exact idea, where he says, none of you lack trust. You're always trusting 100% in something. And he goes, what doubt is 100% trust in something you don't prefer. So he's like, you don't have to learn how to manifest. You just have to become aware of what you're doing based on what you're focusing on. And the emotions are the key to what you're creating. So if you're feeling doubt, you have 100% trust that you're applying towards creating a future that you don't prefer. Or you have 100% trust in lack.
Yes. Like, I doubt I'm going to get on this flight,
Yes.
right? Like, you're right.
Yes. Yes, that was exactly it. And I said, she's like, you got a 1 in a million chance of making the earlier flight to make your connection. I said, 1 in a million, those are amazing odds. I'll totally take that. Sign me up. And walked straight up to the gate, and they're like, oh yeah, you'll definitely get on this flight. And I was like, boom.
Yes.
Boom. I am him. That's a phrase me and someone were playing around with. Did we talk about this? My niece and nephew, who are, oh shit, I don't want to get their ages wrong. They're the best niece and nephew ever. One's in high school and one's, I think, in 8th grade. But apparently, like, amongst their friends, they use this phrase where if you do something awesome, you can say, I am him, or I am her, or I am them, whatever pronoun you choose to use. Or if you see someone else do something awesome, you can say, he is him, or she is her. And I was like, do you guys kind of mean like God? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we mean.
Wow.
Like, I am him means like, I am God, I am in my power. Like, so I started borrowing this phrase. It feels awesome.
I love that,
right?
especially for kids.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Like, own your power.
Own your power.
Gosh, if we could just teach our kids that and how to think independently and not just go along with what the school tells you, what the government tells you, or what your friends tell you, or what your parents tell you. I didn't say that out loud.
Yeah. The rebels, the like quote unquote rebels, and most rebels are truly harmless. They're just not staying in the lines.
Yeah.
Paradoxically, like some of the biggest rebels would never really like harm anyone. They're just not where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there doing the things they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So
They're some of the 2% that actually still think for themselves.
Yes.
And it's such a tiny percentage that it's threatening to the status quo. And it's threatening to those who don't know how to think or want to do other people's thinking for them.
yes. And I sat with this too a lot most recently, the idea of like threatening, like someone's making more money than me is threatening, or someone's more popular is threatening. And then I realized, I like felt it. The emotion of feeling threatened is the indicator that I am having 100% trust in something that's out of alignment. So then when I shift to the perspective that the abundance on the earth is not a finite pie, it's an infinite pie, and the more I allow for myself, the bigger I make the pie for the world, then all of a sudden I get the emotional feedback of joy and happiness and peace, which is the indicator you're focused in alignment with your truth, and you're gonna get that reality. And it is so much fun to like actually play with the ideas and sit with it when the emotion comes on, to sit down right then and be like, this is the time to do the work. Anytime the mind is telling me, oh, we'll do the work later, there is no later. It's always right fucking now. Boom.
Yeah.
I incorporated it into this episode. It just happened.
That was amazing.
It was amazing.
Right fucking now.
Right fucking now.
I love it. Yeah, now is the new later.
Yeah. And weird is the new normal. I was just saying that with someone too.
That too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. I have another key idea if you're interested.
No,
From the
thanks.
Abraham cruise. No, we're good.
No more ideas.
I have so many like things bubbling up from this past week.
Oh,
It was
I love
so
it.
exhilarating.
Bring it.
One core idea, again, Abraham's probably said it a million times, but being there on the ship with her, surrounded by other people, really locked in a lot of these ideas. Someone was asking if it is more advantageous to play with thought or emotion, because I recognize sometimes when I sit down to meditate or sit down to focus, I can pick a thought or I can pick an emotion. Frequently they get in a cycle. I think we talked about that on other episodes. But she was recommending focusing on the emotion because she said you can feel further out than you can think. And I loved that idea so much because obviously there's thoughts that have never been thunk yet, right? Like in 1800, someone saw a bird and at some point was like, I wonder if we could fly like a bird. Like that thought was the creation of the airplane ultimately.
Yeah.
It took time to play out. I'm sure there's infinite number of things that just haven't dawned on us yet to think. And I love the idea that emotions can project further into future potentials than thought can, because you can only Joe says that too, you can only think I forget his exact phrase, but you can't think beyond the emotional
emotion,
state
yeah.
you're in.
Yeah.
So the emotional state really seems to be
It's
the
the
key.
leader.
It's everything.
It's
Yeah.
the leader. I wonder, this is an interesting thought. When we're dealing with energy, like for example, like in coherence healings, is it the emotion or the thought that is projecting the energy that's healing? Because we're focusing on our heart. We're opening up our heart.
Yes.
We're focusing on nothing, but then we're like channeling energy. It seems like for me, it's like intention, but the intention fuels that emotion.
Totally. I guess it's a known circumstance. We have the idea of someone who's in a state they don't prefer and interested in choosing a different state.
Yeah.
So I suppose with the coherence healings, thought or emotion could be the
interesting,
factor,
right?
or both.
Yeah.
I see that idea of heart-brain coherence so clearly now. Brain is the thought, heart is the emotion. Is that your understanding of heart-brain coherence? It's basically thought and emotion that actually match up. You're not like, I'm wealthy, while you're feeling the emotion of lack. There would be no heart-brain coherence there. But when you lock in and you get...
It's just one system.
Right, it's just one of the two. And
Which makes sense, because when you're doing a coherence healing, you're focused on wholeness.
Yes.
Like, we don't ever know what someone is presenting with or what their symptoms are or their diagnosis is. Yes. We just see them in wholeness and oneness. And a lot of people that aren't students, they don't get it. They're like, don't you need to know what's wrong with me? Like, nope, we can tell you what's right with you. We only see what's right.
Yes.
We don't focus on what we don't prefer.
Yes. My last Dr. Joe retreat, when we went into the coherence healings, I was so locked in. I had like waves of bliss and all sorts of stuff that day. And when I walked in, thanks to my QHHT session, I know when like my higher self is speaking to me now, and I can look back on past memories and realize, oh shit, that was my higher self. The last coherence healing, I walked in and I was literally fighting back the laughter. And my inner being is always like, laughter is alignment. It is truth. It is joy. That is source. It's all the same thing. So I was walking in almost laughing, recognizing everyone is an indestructible, infinite, powerful like being. And it became amusing to think of someone not actually embodying what they are. Almost like it would be amusing. There's like a cartoon strip I've seen before of fish in water. Oh. And one of them's, I've seen it drawn a couple of ways, but the one that resonates most deeply is one of the fish is like, hey, I really want a drink of water, when they're obviously suspended in water. And that image was coming to mind when I was going to the coherence healing, being like, this is an indestructible being. Like, how can you tell me you're not whole? Like, you're completely whole. I couldn't not see everyone in the room as whole. And it literally became funny to think of someone who's whole being like, I'm not whole. Or like, I also saw it as them holding a huge battery and they're like, please, can I have some power? I just need a little power. And it's humorous. You're holding a fucking nuclear generator, like asking for a little spark of power. And I love locking into that state, and the whole world becomes amusing when you're walking down the street realizing everything is perfect just as it is.
Yeah, and it's human nature to forget. That's like, we're human beings. We have a body. Like, we're not a body. We have a body.
Yes.
It's not us. It's just, we own it.
That is what I see the game. And my inner being was using masculine, feminine as ideas to help me better understand the game of human life. And it was using masculine as thought and frequently time and fear. And it was using feminine as love and source. And it was saying feminine is perhaps the ultimate highest truth because love is the truth. But it was saying if you want to have a game of expansion, we had to create the idea of a masculine, which is kind of a disguised feminine, which is thought and fear, to actually create a game. And it's like, that's why the masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang, the balance, the two have to come together if you want to have an experience of expansion. You can just sit suspended in infinite love, which we basically are right now. But if you want to like do something exhilarating with it, some counterpart, some other side of the coin had to be created. And this explanation really resonated deeply with me, obviously, since it's my inner bro. So
of course.
Thanks, inner bro.
And the masculine is where we get into action. Like actually having an experience requires some type of action sometimes, if you're not in meditation. Right? So you get to make a choice. And you can do that however you want. But a lot of times, you know, I think, speaking of manifestation, remember The Secret, when it was out, a lot of people thought they could just meditate their way to wealth and abundance, but they were skipping that masculine element of actually taking action. So they would get guidance and they would be like, oh, it's just going to come to me. I don't have to do anything. But there's both. There's both involved. You know, if we, as human beings, didn't do things for one another, you know, if we didn't hug one another or, you know, do charity or whatever. Hold the door for other people. Like, we're called to do things.
And that is damn powerful, using the action for love. It like redirects the separation into integration. And I was playing around a ton with that on this cruise too, when I was confronted with things that I recognized as no longer my preference. People were suggesting ideas or vibrations, which again, I recognize is completely valid because all games are valid, but I see that's not my preference anymore. I was choosing that previously, but starting right now, I'm no longer choosing it. I was seeing huge power in speaking my truth and then holding a loving space for the person to share their limitation. Like when they're holding a huge battery begging for power, I would speak my truth. I think you're completely whole. And then if they wanted to go on about not having enough power, I'd say, cool, like let's hang out. And I recognize that I chose this perspective before. So if they're ultimately me, I love myself and I love them for having a valid perspective.
So can you give us an example of one of those times? Like what's a game you're no longer playing?
Oh geez, so many of them. And
Five
actually,
card stud. Strip poker. I know you're playing that.
I think that's a game I'm still going to continue to play. I'm playing more strip games now as a result. And actually, this is presenting an interesting question, or I wish to reframe it in games I'm now choosing to play rather than games I'm not choosing to play.
Good call.
Based on our past episode. I see it in real time. So I'm playing games of abundance. I'm playing games of complete surrender and trust to reality. And I'm playing games pertaining to really seeing reality as a mirror and focused on what I'm truthfully, emotionally putting out in every moment, knowing that reality is a mirror. So if I'm ever, when I'm in that circumstance where someone's like, please, can I have some power? And I see them holding a huge battery, I recognize that if I lean too much into the idea that you're crazy and you're wrong, I'm projecting and feel the emotion of this person's like crazy, like something's wrong, you need to see this. I'm actually feeding the mirror that vibration,
Yeah.
and then experiences that match that have to come back to me.
Because it's resistance.
It's resistance.
Yeah,
Any
exactly.
resistance is resistance. And every second.
And it's a
the
vibration.
game- yes.
That's exactly what the thing that you are resisting is what you're going to get. Right?
Yes, yes.
So recognizing it, then what? Then you make a choice.
Then you make a choice, and I can say, thank you so much for showing me this perspective that I held within me. And if I take a minute while they're talking, I can very frequently go back to memories where I go, yup, as the Course in Miracles says, I recognize this thought as my own. I can
Yeah.
clearly remember a point in the past when I chose this perspective and believed it was true. So in my QHHT session, my inner being was saying frequently, people are reflecting my previous thought fragments back to me. So now with that understanding, I can say, beautiful, I put it out, the mirror's showing me it back. And the
Right.
only thing I can do to change the reflection, if I prefer to, is accept it. Because if I resist it in any way, I'm cycling through, and then it becomes easy to see how you could cycle eons of lifetimes, not realizing I'm just talking to myself. There's no one else here.
It's an interesting practice. I mean, even knowing those concepts about projection and believing in my head like there's nothing outside of me, there's still times when I think there is. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it's amazing, like, to get to that point where you actually remember, like, oh yeah, this is me. Okay, how is this me? And I talk to people all the time. Like when I'm coaching people, like I'll say, okay, have you ever had these characteristics? Have you ever been selfish? Like I ask people, you want me to tell you?
Yes, yes, definitely.
So if somebody comes to me and they're pissed off at somebody else,
Yeah.
I'll say, great, this is awesome. Okay, tell me their characteristics. What characteristics is this person showing up in? So it's not the behavior. It's not like you're judging a pedophile that we're ever a pedophile or are ever going to be. It's what characteristics does this person exhibit?
Right.
And that is where you get down to the projection, because trust me, if you see it, you have every single one of them. And if you don't like it, you're resisting it.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Yes.
And we're all holistic beings, meaning we all have every single characteristic within us in
Yes.
abundance. Like we're not
Yes.
lacking anything.
Yes.
But it's when we reject those that we feel like we're not whole.
yes.
And we cannot embody their opposites. So for me, like one of my trigger words forever was selfish, because my mom would say, oh, if you're selfish, like I made it mean like you're not lovable. You're not
Yes.
worthy. I don't want you in my house. Like, so basically I was going to die alone. Like nobody was going to love me if I was selfish. So it was a pretty triggered word. Now for me, the opposite of selfish is generous. So without me accepting the selfish part of me, I could never be generous. And that was kind of easy as an analogy, because if you are so afraid of being selfish, you say yes to everything, like everybody's requests, and there's nothing left for you. Like nothing. Like
Yes.
you've given it all away and you haven't chosen.
Yes.
You haven't chosen yourself. Like you've left the most important person out of your equation.
Yes.
And I think that is really poignant. So when we're looking outside of ourselves, even watching the news, stop it. Stop watching it.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
I mean, do what you want. I'm just saying, like, if you are playing the game of up-leveling your consciousness and keeping your vibration higher, that's not a way to do it, in my experience.
Yeah.
The way to do it is to, what? Follow your highest desire. Like, find people and experiences that expand you and light you up and delight you and make you giggle
Yes.
at inappropriate moments. Oh my, I'm the
Definitely.
queen of that.
Oh, yes. That's what I'm hearing my inner being in the channeling. It was saying when everyone else is running, stand still. When everyone else is holding, give. And when everyone else is screaming in horror, laugh. Because you're sending a clear signal to the mirror. That's fine. They can scream in horror. That's a valid truth. My preference is to laugh now, but not in judgment or
I
in
know.
vain, but to truly I would take a minute then and meditate to refocus,
Yeah.
to bring up the legitimate emotions. And what you were saying in self-love, I was really seeing self-love, the best understanding I have now, which is kind of heightened, is choosing emotions that feel good to yourself in every moment. I was really seeing that's really what self-love is. I can be angry, and maybe I have legitimate reasons to be angry now at this person or circumstance or whatever, but the real self-love is saying the emotion of anger is not self-loving to myself. So I'm simply, if the best I can do is just let it go, I'll let it go. If I can somehow spin it by recognizing with high enough consciousness in the moment, this is benefiting me, and actually get emotional feedback to have the heart brain coherence, that's $1 million. It's infinitely valuable. But the self-love is really in choosing the emotions in the moment that are kind to yourself. I was listening to someone, I don't remember who, I don't think it was one of my main go-to people, but they were saying a lot of people will say things to themselves that they would never say to someone else. And I was like, shit, you are so right. And then
they would never allow other people to say to them.
Yes. And like you were saying before, if you interact with clients and say like, have you ever thought this maybe about yourself before? The other person can at the highest truth, again, maybe not highest, that person is reflecting back to me the own fucking thoughts in my own head.
Yep.
And I'm blaming them when I chose to sit in that emotion and that thought for a while. And they're simply like, hey, it's a mirror. This is what you've been thinking about and emotionally embracing.
Right.
So my power in the moment is being like, I recognize that thought and emotion as my own. I clearly thought it before.
Right.
And I see myself in you, and I'm gonna hold you in an embrace and accept and allow it. Let's switch the mirror together.
Yeah, and loving it exactly, or loving a person exactly as they are. I think I told you this before, I don't remember, but I was in this meditation with Inner Science Group, which is the foundation that does research with Dr. Joe Dispenza's stuff. And there were like 600 people, and it was online. And I had this experience where there were 3 men that I was judging. And one was an ex, one was a politician, and one was like, somebody was in charge of an organization that I was a high-level volunteer for. And I was judging all of them. They were all wrong, in quotes. Mm-hmm. And in this meditation, I got to this point of complete love and acceptance. First, it had to be of myself. It had to be, right? There's no other way. But then complete love and acceptance of these 3 men. And in my mind, the analogy was, I love them as much as my own children. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I could not fathom that. That just seemed like it would be impossible. But when you are in that higher level of consciousness, when you are your true God self, there is no separation between the people you hate and your children and your loved ones. There's no difference.
Yes.
None. When you're in truth, there's no difference.
Yes.
And there's no difference between you. Like, you get to love yourself that much too.
Yes.
And that was so mind-blowing to me. Like, it reminds me of Dr. Joe. Is there more love to feel? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that idea so much. I've found that truth too. And that's a new game I'm playing. I'm not ranking people around me anymore. This person's family, so they're more important than that person walking on the street, than that person over there who's angering me, showing me my own reflection, choosing the belief everyone is an aspect of myself. And a core idea I'm really getting from my higher self is I get to be the love. I get to be the love. If the world is a mirror, I get to be the one to show love first.
Yeah.
No one can show more love than I am showing first.
Yeah.
I have to give that level of love out to the mirror to make it a potential possibility in the external world. And I was like just overwhelmed a couple times, being like, I get to be the love.
Yeah.
How much cooler than that? I get to be the love. And some elements from the Course in Miracles make it really easy. And I'm paraphrasing and probably messing it up a little bit, but basically anything that's real cannot be threatened. Anything that's not real is just an illusion. So the idea of oh shit, it might cost me money, it might cost me time, it might cost me time, money. All these things are not inherent truths.
Right.
So it's,
And
I'm like,
only love is real.
only love
according
is
to the
real,
Course in
exactly.
Miracles. So
yes. So if I get to be the love and it's gonna cost me something that's gonna disappear at the end of my lifetime, why the fuck not take a chance and see what happens when I give when everyone else is holding and stop when everyone else is running? Because I get to be the love, and it generates such love within myself because I can see I've chosen differently, and I love myself so much for choosing the emotions that feel good, even regardless of the outcome. I like literally a lot of days could care less what happens in my life. I'm so in love that I chose to not beat myself up or not think negative emotions, that like if I wind up homeless and dead somewhere, whatever, like I'm gonna love that I just didn't keep playing this game of shortage consciousness and anger and blame and shame and guilt. It's like so exhilarating.
Yes.
So exhilarating.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have this concept, I don't know where it comes from, but I used to say, like when I would do speaking and I would introduce myself, that one of my greatest superpowers was being a divine mirror and really reflecting back to people like who they are at their core, like that love, just reflecting it back. Like I only see love, until they could see it for themselves. Because I've had people do that for me. And I don't know about you, but like the first time you really see yourself, it's humbling. And it's unforgettable. Like I can remember like exactly where I was standing the moment I got it, that I didn't have to earn love, that I was love.
Yes.
And there were people that brought that about for me, and I'm forever grateful, and I'm forever willing to pay it forward, because what more beautiful gift can we give to one another than that? To be the one who caused someone else to see the truth about themselves, that there's nothing wrong with anyone. Nothing. You are pure love.
Fuck yes, 100%. Everyone is perfect and everything is perfect.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. I was seeing that with a puppy or with dogs. I was like, what really makes dogs so amazing? You sit with them and they're simply in a thoughtless state. They're not judging. They're simply just accepting and allowing. Being. Yeah. And that's why I realized they're so attractive. They're not offering any vibration, basically. And Abraham kind of zeroes in on that. She's like, the beasts of your planet are basically like in a thoughtless state. They're just kind of experiencing the moment. And without that like masculine thought, they're inherently accepting and allowing. And that's why it feels so good. And I was choosing to emulate that sometimes with people and realize I don't necessarily have to say anything. Sometimes I can just hold space and choose, almost like a meditation, when the thoughts come, to just let them roll by and be like, I'm choosing to just be here in a thoughtless state for you. And that's the most powerful thing someone could do for me. So that's the most powerful thing I could do for them. And then if you have the elevated emotions going, seeing them as whole, like getting that image of the person already whole and finding it comical, is like the fucking locked in power state. You're locked in there.
And they feel it.
They feel it.
Like, go back to Course in Miracles, that's the state of empty-headedness. Like where you're just in the moment, being informed in the moment. If there's anything for you to do, you'll be informed.
Yes.
Without having these judgments and it's really fascinating to me. Like when I actually pray and ask, like get me out of the way and speak through me. Sometimes the stuff that comes sounds very harsh to my human ear. And then I used to judge it and filter it like, oh, I can't say that or whatever. But when I allowed myself to just like be the mouthpiece for God, it hit, like it resonates with everybody.
Yeah.
No matter how harsh it sounds to me, it was exactly what they needed in the moment.
That is so cool.
And I just allowed myself to be the channel.
Yeah. That's so cool. Intention is so powerful.
Yeah.
And simply, I recognize now, even if I don't consciously know what the answer is, if I simply hold the intention, I intend to show love to this person, use me as an instrument, because the paradox of asking a higher consciousness to use me as an instrument for flowing love is it freaking flows love to me too. Like I benefit. And Abraham was talking about that on the cruise too. When you give someone the benefit of the doubt, you're actually the one getting the benefit. ooh, I'm getting goosebumps. They are too, but you're getting the benefit just as much as they are.
Oh, yeah. And that energy spreads. I mean, we've talked about that before, but
Yes.
the higher frequency energies will consume the lower frequency energies in a room if the
Yes.
person holding that high frequency is aware
Yes.
of that law
Yes. Oh,
and has that intention, right? Like if you have the intention, like I'm bringing this room up to my level, like it
Yes.
happens.
I love that.
That's something I play with. I practice that a lot.
Yes.
It's fun.
Yes.
I do it at yoga because there's like no one can leave.
You're like, I got you all trapped. There's going to be love in this room.
You're getting some love, and I got
Yeah.
some love for you and you and you. I'm like Oprah with love.
I love that. That happens several times during the walking meditations with Dr. Joe. I love this image I get of myself of like a sun burning in my heart and just radiating out. And I feel like I have power in my hands, and everyone I walk by, I'm not actually moving my hands, but in my imagination, I see myself moving my hands and just shooting like this loving appreciation, perfection light to everyone and touching them. And then sometimes I see them like laugh or like fall to the ground like, oh, I feel so good. And I like love it. Just like being a love superhero.
It's
you can like touch
amazing.
everyone.
And think about, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to feel really good about yourself, and you're going to feel in love with yourself.
Yeah. It's amazing how frequently the idea of being perceived as crazy used to previously stop me from doing stuff. Like, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of like crazy stuff. I'm excited to be one of them.
We do it publicly on here, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Yes.
I love it.
I love it too. You feeling good?
I'm feeling great.
Me too.
We need a...
Yeah, we need a peace out. Oh yeah. Is this it? Is this the finger of love?
Sure. You get some love.
You get some love and you get some love. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks for watching and listening.